NBA trade season has officially arrived, and the Philadelphia 76ers find themselves in a slightly different position than they expect to be the case. With the Jared McCain injury forcing this team to look for replacements for the output, Keon Ellis' name has emerged to the market as a potential replacement for the player that looked on the pathway to becoming Rookie of the Year. I want to break down what my outlook is for the Sixers at this specific time, what Keon Ellis could potentially bring to the Sixers team, and why I think this would be a slam dunk move if Daryl Morey can get things done. Now, we obviously understand that the Sixers team has not gotten off to the start this season that they hope to be the case. They sit in it with an 8-16 record, still trying to claw their way into the play-in, into the playoffs, and have plenty of work to do. So where that changes the goalpost in my mind is you cannot target a player that is just a one-year rental or a player that is just here for the short term. You got to get it on both ends, and that's what I think Keon Ellis is. So let me dive into the exact headline here to what sparked this video. I'm going to start off with this article from Kai Carlin of Sixers Wire that writes, 3 players that the Philadelphia 76ers should target in the trade market. So a couple names that I do want to dig into in this article, but the top being right here, Keon Ellis. And Kai writes, Ellis is shooting 40.7% from deep with the Kings while being a pest on the defensive end. He is the quintessential 3-and-D player you put next to Embiid, Maxey, and George, and is only making $2.1 million in the 24-25 season. The Sixers could use a player of his caliber to knock down open looks and also make plays on the defensive end. He's athletic enough to run with Maxey on the break, and he would make life easier for everybody defensively. Now, to dive into things here, I'm a Keon Ellis guy. That I've liked him since Alabama, really enjoyed watching him in college. He is a guy that has done it the hard way, spent 2 seasons at JUCO, transferred to Alabama, didn't really play much his first year. I believe he averaged like 13 minutes per game, somewhere in that ballpark there, and then really popped in that 4th season in college, the 2nd season at Alabama, which really put him on the radar from an NBA draft perspective, and that is what paved his way to being selected by the Sacramento Kings and earning an opportunity with that roster. Now, to dive into his stats as a whole, he's not a guy who the stats tell the story. This is his 3rd season in the NBA that he played just 16 games as a rookie, barely getting any sort of opportunity there. In his 2nd season, we saw the impact that Keon Ellis could make. Out of the 57 games that he suited up for last year, he started 21 of them, was especially strong towards the tail end of the season, and even into that play-in tournament, and I believe playoffs there was one series with the Kings, or if it was just a play-in, I remember him shining in those opportunities there. He averaged 17.2 minutes per game, 5.4 points, 1.5 assists, 2.2 rebounds, but did shoot 41.7% from beyond the three-point arc on 2.9 three-point attempts per game. I get that isn't the highest volume in the world, but that's still something to take away from, and that stands the test of time, as this year he's shooting 40.7% from 3 on 3.2. And to dive into Keon Ellis specifically, this season we're seeing these stats here. Shooting from the corner, 53.8%, which I do think is super valuable there. He does measure in at 6'6". I have seen a couple kind of conflicting reports on what his height is. He doesn't look quite 6'6" to me on the floor. I will say that. I think he's probably a little bit more in that 6'4", 6'3" type range. Maybe he's got a little bit more to him, but he is a guy that's capable of scaling up as far as positionally what he is guarding. Now, whenever there is these sorts of conversations, you do have to approach it from the other side. Why are the Kings trying to move on from a young player with a bright future? What is the motivation for them? So I did want to pull up this article, this coming from the Kings affiliate over at in Fan Nation there, and to pull up exactly what is written, we have Ellis's elite defensive tenacity and impressive three-point efficiency make him a very eye-popping trade target for many teams, especially making just over $2 million per year. The 76ers and Timberwolves are 2 squads that have not lived up to expectations this season, especially the 8-16 Philly squad. Minnesota already has a team filled with defensive studs, so adding another would just add to their firepower. The 76ers, on the other hand, could really use the defensive help that Ellis would bring. It would be a brutal loss for the Kings to trade Ellis away, especially because he has the potential to anchor their defense for the future, but it is certainly a possibility if it helps their title chances. And reading in a little deeper for what the perception is here, basically it's a logjam at the guard spot out there in Sacramento. That Malik Monk has been injected into the starting lineup, a guy who we've seen be right in that mix for 6th man of the year, has brought some really good moments and statistical seasons to that Kings organization. Obviously signed a pretty notable contract this offseason. They also have Devin Carter, who they selected in this year's draft, who essentially is the same archetype of player as Keon Ellis. Ellis obviously has a little bit more experience, but I think it's fair to assess all around that there's a way higher ceiling with Devin Carter, and particularly the player that he turned into in that final season at Providence. He dealt with an injury towards Summer League and all throughout the start of the season, so they're just starting to get him back. And Kevin Huerter is still a part of that puzzle as well. So kind of Keon Ellis, there just isn't as big enough a role for him as his talent probably commands, and that is where Daryl Morey and the Sixers can sneak in here. Now, Why this is so appealing to me is directly to look at his contract. There is a $2.1 million deal this year. You have a club option for $2.3 million next year, and you're absolutely picking that up. That there is no doubt in my mind that Daryl Morey should, and frankly, whatever team that Keon Ellis is on should be picking up, because that is a bargain of a contract. Now, when thinking about how you get the Kings to buy into this, I think there's a real conversation to be had about if they should be, keeping in mind the future. That yes, you made this contract to bring in DeMar DeRozan. Yes, you have a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who is your franchise centerpiece. Domantas Sabonis, a very good NBA player. When you look around the Western Conference, some tough times out there. And I do wonder if, when you have your kind of core that Keon Ellis is not a part of, if they would prioritize adding a little bit of draft capital back. And that is, to me, the simplest deal that I see being done. This is just kind of a thought process for me and nothing that I have super concrete. But when looking at how to make it work, I do think the draft pick is the overall, the leading factor here. I think there's a chance that the Kings could be speaking about, we want Gershon Yabusele, which I have a little bit of a tough time having that conversation here. But if it's just the draft pick that is the conversation, or what they want in return here, sign me up for attaching that to Eric Gordon, who has $3.3 million on the books. And something important to note as we approach trade season, due to the apron that they are in, the Philadelphia 76ers cannot take back more money in salary than they send out in a trade in order for it to work there. So with this trade here, with Eric Gordon's $3.3 million cap hit, you can bring back Keon Ellis by attaching a first-round pick to him. If it is as simple as that, and that is all it takes, you sign me up for that 10 out of 10. And when speaking in the long haul for what I think Keon Ellis can bring to the Sixers team, I think that is the defensive answer for who you're looking to pair with Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. I get that size is going to be a little bit of a concern, and the priorities moving forward are absolutely to surround them with more, real deal wing type players like Paul George. Kelly Oubre is not a bad option for these conversations. Caleb Martin is obviously a guy who that is theoretically his fit as well. So they have guys like that already, but bringing a guy like Keon Ellis, he truly is like a game changer defensively. And I think when speaking about the love that players like Davion Mitchell are currently getting for the impact that they can make, I mean, Drew Holiday has made a career of it. I think that is the pathway that Keon Ellis is capable of going down. I don't know if he ever reaches quite the heights of a guy like Drew Holiday, but that archetype of player is who he is. And that, in the way that he's knocking down three-pointers right now, and once again to highlight the numbers on the season, 40.7% from beyond the arc, 53.8% from the corner, still just 24 years old, about to turn 25. It's nice adding some more young talent to the Sixers team, and I think this is a nice way to sort of bleed the timelines a little bit. If you add talent that, yes, can help them right now, again, he made an impact in last year's play-in and helping that Kings team immediately, that still keeps the door open for this guy to continue developing, and I do think that there's a pretty clean pairing for him with Maxey McCain, sort of being that defensive option to it. Marcus Smart's another guy that pops to mind when thinking about player comps for what he kind of looks like in players that he plays like there. So for Daryl Morey, if this is a real conversation about Keon Ellis is for the taking, does not have a future in Sacramento, I would love for his new home to be Philadelphia. This is a guy that the city would fall in love with, who wears his heart on his sleeve, competes his heart out every single play, and has a skill set that I think is a clean fit with this Sixers team. I think he's done a pretty good job improving as a guy in the half-court setting. He's certainly more than comfortable getting up and down the break, does a lot of his offensive damage when getting out in transition and attacking guys in those fast break situations, and I do think that's something that would be incredibly effective pairing with Tyrese Maxey here. So this is absolutely worth a phone call in my mind. I understand that we are not one Keon Ellis away from the Sixers team contending for a championship right now, but these are the type of moves that, as you sort of don't have the full clarity for what the outlook for this season is due to injuries to Joel Embiid and everywhere around here, that you can kind of strike that middle ground. So you're improving the team in the short term, you're keeping options open in the long term, and you can retool if worse comes to worse. That this is a young guy added to the core. I love this. I love this from every single angle, and definitely would love to see Keon Ellis in a Sixers jersey. So let me know if you guys are on the same page as me, but I am drinking the Kool-Aid for what Keon Ellis could bring to this team. I do think he's a difference maker and will be on a playoff contender for the remainder of his NBA career, and I would love nothing more than for that to happen in Philadelphia. But let me know if you're as high on him as I am. Drop your thoughts in the comments. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Dropping a like, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.